You're welcome to another episode on the Global NEXUS Network. This video, we are going to talk about something interesting. We want to talk about Ghana's 1992 constitutional review, which has been a topic for major debate since the year 2000, and we are still battling it. We still don't know when we would finally get review to the 1992 constitution. So tonight we want to look into it. Once we have a new president, John Dramani Mahama, we want to look at the advantage Mahama have right now when he decides to give Ghana a constitutional review, as to whether he can do that before he leaves office in 2028 or he cannot. That is what we are going to do. So before we move on, I would want to say a big thank you to Bernard Avle of Channel 1 TV. He did an intensive analysis over this topic, and I think that little piece from him has been very helpful to anybody who follows constitutional review in the country, as long as the 1992 constitution is concerned. So let's look at what is wrong with the constitution. What are people saying is wrong, and because of that we need to review the constitution. So the 1992 constitution, those who argue in favor of the constitution will tell you that it's the best the country has had since independence. And people also say that it's by the very nature of the constitution, that is why we've been able to preserve our democracy till today. But those who argue against the constitution will tell you that it's simply out of purpose. It's not fit for inclusive development. It's not fit for public accountability, because they think that the constitution showed a lot of people to evade public accountability. They think that politicians become richer than the development we see at the end of a 4-year tenure. So in that regard, it suggests that the constitution is not fit for inclusive development. They also say that it gives so much power to the executive. In Bernard's video, he says that per their calculation, the president alone appoints over 8,000 people within that small 4 years that we put him in that office. 8,000 people. That means the president appoints more people than even what the whole country or the 30 million Ghanaians elect into office. That's without the power they have. So literally, you would say that almost all the most important people in the country is being appointed by the president. So that's the kind of power the constitution gives to the executive, and this is what people say that it can't continue. We need to change it. People also argue saying that this particular constitution is too political than it should be development with regard to our current stand. So they say that because the constitution allowed the president to appoint almost all the important people in the country, people are quick to deal with their political stand. They are quick to defend their political stand rather than to defend the country. So it takes away country first sentiment from the people, as people are quick to defend their political stand. So these are among the many things people say that it can't continue. It just needs to stop, or it just needs to be changed. Something else needs to be in place of this. All right. So if we are ever going to get a constitutional review, we would get it either from the NDC or the NPP, because they are the two major political parties in the country that have taken power since the Fourth Republic. And why haven't we gotten it from these people? Could it be that none of these parties finds it problematic? Could it be that both parties think the constitution is perfect? Okay, if a campaign for constitutional review would work, it will also rest on civil society groups within the country. So in the later part of the review, we're also going to look at as to whether civil society group organizations within the country also find the constitution problematic. That is when we will be able to establish that indeed there was indeed a problem with the constitution. These are the three major key players within our democracy, and their involvement in campaign for a constitutional review would be the best. So starting with the NDC, in 2010, former President Mills, right after a month when he took power, he set up a CI that gave birth to a CRC, and they reviewed the constitution. They came up with recommendations, and as of now, none of the recommendations has been implemented. That suggests that the NDC as a party thinks that the constitution needs a review. NPP also has on numerous occasions rejected the approach the NDC used in the attempt to review the constitution, but they don't say the constitution is okay. This also go further to argue that Parliament should lead the cause, and we can also take it gradually. It also suggests that the NPP as a party also think that the constitution needs a review. To talk about civil society group organization, CDD also said that, but the problem this very constitution have, pick and choose or any other way will not help except a complete overhaul. that also says that indeed civil society group organizations in the country also think that our constitution needs a review. So why haven't we achieved this? In the next part of the video, we are going to look at what has been done, what are the method or the approach available or at the disposal of to President Mahama if he decides to give us a constitutional review before he leaves office. And then we are going to look at the strength or the advantage he had over all other people who have tried to give us a constitutional review and it did not work. After we've been able to establish this, that is when we'll be able to say that President Mahama could give Ghana a constitutional review before leaving office or not. All right, so moving on, let's look at what has been done. In 2010, just like I said earlier, after a month of former President Mills taking power, he set up a CI that gave birth to a constitutional review committee. The committee said that they spent over $6 million in their process. I remember they did what they call national mini consultation. They did national mini consultation 1, 2, 3, 4, and even a fifth one. That one they said they spoke to Ghanaians abroad. They spoke to a lot of people, including former president and former state officials. They spoke to even regular Ghanaians, and they came up with over 900-page report with a lot of recommendations. But it's quite unfortunate that as at now, the recommendation has never been implemented. So if Mahama decides to give us a constitution, one of the approach Mahama can think about or can use is an idea of setting up a CI, because when that approach was used, the Supreme Court said that it's not illegal. After several oppositions, people challenge the whole process in court. The Supreme Court ruled that it's legal, so anybody at all can use that. So it has become an approach that if Mahama decides to give us a constitutional review, he can decide to look into that. So let's look at what the NDC, the NPP rather, also suggested, of which can also be an approach that Mahama could also decide on in case Mahama decides to give us a constitutional review before leaving office. The NPP think that if the constitution itself provides ways and means in which it could be amended, and one way is that Parliament should lead and not a president or a state officials going into his or her bedroom to decide that our constitution needs a review, and he did decide on the method, setting up a CI just like former President Mills did. The NPP think that Parliament should lead the cause, so it should be debated. If any part needed a review, Parliament should decide, and then we go through the usual process, a referendum, and whatever be the outcome, we take it like that. So this is also an approach, Parliament being the leader of the whole process, not a separate committee or a set up CI that is giving somebody's power to do whatever. The Parliament doing the whole process, just like the Constitution proposed. And also the CDD also suggests another approach, that if in case Mahama decides to give us a constitution he could choose, that is a complete overhaul. What it means is that the constitution is too old or is outdated, so set somewhere, let's come up with a completely new constitution to govern our affairs. So these are the three approaches that if President Mahama wants to give Ghana a constitutional review before finally leaving office, he can decide to use any of them. And in the next part of the video, we are going to look at what advantage does he have over all these three, and if he decides to do it, is he going to succeed? Which of them would really make him succeed, with considering the time span he has left. But before we continue, let me tell you my personal take on President Mahama when it comes to constitutional review within the country. Okay, personally, this is what I've learned about President Mahama with regard to the issue of constitutional review within Ghana. I personally think that President Mahama has not shown enough interest in the issue of constitutional review within the country. Why am I saying this? I know you have a different opinion, but this is my opinion, and I'm saying this because of his approach after former President Mills died. Okay, so when former President Mills died, it became obvious that the whole idea of reviewing the 1992 Constitution, which the NDC started in 2010, was totally his project. Because when he died, before he died, we saw progress. Even I remember there was a time that they even put up a CRIT, that's the Constitutional Review Implementation Committee. So that should tell you that there was real traction. We were heading somewhere. But immediately when Professor Mills died, that was the end of the whole process. We didn't see much from 2013 when President Mahama took power. we didn't see much. Fine, there was some court case, but I personally think that he could have done more than we saw. So to me, he's not so much interested, but time has elapsed, and maybe he might have seen something different. He might have even gotten his own ideas on how we can review the 1992 Constitution. So let's see what will happen. But tonight, we are actually going to look at what advantage he has over over the existing approach available to anyone who would want to give Ghana a constitutional review. So the first one, that is setting up a CI that would eventually give birth to a constitutional review committee, and out of the committee we can get some recommendations and we can act on them to get a review. If President Mahama decides to go with this approach, what I would say is that it's a done deal, because it's something that has been done already, and the committee we had at that time are not people who somebody would argue that they didn't have the competence or the knowledge to do that work. They were very competent people who came up with a comprehensive report, an over 900-page report. It tells you that the quantum of the work they did was huge. So if Mahama want to go by this approach, I would say that it's a done deal. It's a process that we've already spent the money. $6.3 million is a serious money that could do a lot of things in the country. We've already spent it on a process. So, and the interesting thing about this whole process is that it was actually done by Mahama's own party, of which he was part of the government. He was an executive member of the governance system. He was a vice president then. So I don't see any reason why he would hesitate in using this approach, or he would find it difficult in adapting this approach. So he has a huge advantage over this particular approach if he decides to go by this. The next approach is Parliament leading the cause. Just as in a regular debate over the issue, and then we identify which one needs to be reviewed and which one should not be reviewed. And actually, you look at the current parliament that Mahama is facing right now. The last time in his last State of Nations address, he was saying that some people even are quick to call him supreme leader because the influence he has when it comes to Ghanaian parliament. He has the numbers, and he can easily, if indeed he wants to give Ghana a constitutional review before he finally leaves office, he can easily find his way out based on the existing parliament structure we have. So in that approach proposed by the NPP, Mahama is actually going to have the advantage, and he can easily pull the strings to give Ghana a constitutional review before leaving office. So the last approach, which the CDD proposed, that's a complete overhaul. And the CDD went further to say that we would need something like a nationwide bipartisan consensus. So what that suggests is that it's not going to be one-party projects like we had in 2010 when the NDC started. Everybody saw it like that's their projects. So if the NDC were successful, it's going to be like the NDC has finally given Ghana a constitutional review. But CDD is saying that would not work. A nationwide bipartisan consensus would be a very good approach. An approach that's not going to be like it's one party's project. So let's see what advantage Mahama has. If Mahama is actually going to go by this method, fine, he is going to face some difficulty. But yet still, it will come back to Parliament. And it will come back to the existing political climate. You see that the NDC is in a position that I would say that they actually enjoying cooperation within the country, because Ghanaians in particular voted overwhelmingly for them, and it tells you the level of cooperation they would get in terms of soliciting ideas and opinions with regard. So in that sense, I would say that Mahama is far better than any other person who have tried this, even if Mahama decides to go with the bipartisan nationwide consensus proposed by CDD. So in natural sense, you could see that if Mahama indeed wants to give Ghana a constitutional review before leaving office, he is far better. He is far better off than any other person who have tried. He has a huge advantage. And it's our hope that he would consider the report that the country spent $6.3 million in generating. And somebody would say that money's wasted, fine, could be maybe in a way regenerated, but knowledge wasted is something that nobody would want to think of. You would also have a different opinion, a different idea when it comes to Mahama giving Ghana a constitutional review before leaving office? Share that with us within the comment section. My name is Alex, and this is Global Network. Thank you so much for watching our video.